Now the next form control I'm going to connect are the checkbox form controls. And to connect them, I will right click them, go to format control and create a cell link. The cell link we are creating is going to generate, unlike the cell link here that generates a number as return, and the number corresponding to the index, the position of the list item I've selected on the list. The cell link for the checkboxes generates either true or false. True when the checkbox is selected, false when it's not selected. And for this cell link, I'm going to connect it to the back end. Well, let me first connect it to the front end here, and then I'll move it off camera. But connecting it all to the front end just to demonstrate how this works. So I'm going to connect each checkbox to the cell right in front of it, which is on column F. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that without a voiceover. Doing that for all of them. Right click, format control, cell link. Right click, format control. Now I've collected all the checkboxes to the cells right in front of them. So this is how the cell link for the checkboxes works. You connect each checkbox to a distinct cell, and that cell will return true when the checkbox is selected, and it would return false when it is deselected. So that is essentially the setup that you can see here in this data table at the back end. This is the connection that was already running in the original car expense model. These checkboxes were connected to this cells in column L. So you notice it's reading false, true, 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 because it is deselected, selected, 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 selected. If I deselect this and then I go to that sheet, you will notice that this has changed to false. And what I'm going to do is now to reconnect them to the back end. So now I'm going to set up the cell links for the option buttons. To do that, I would, again, how you set up any form control, you right click it, go to format control, check out the control section and select the cell link you want to use. This is pointing to G9. So I'm going to click on it and then click OK. Unlike the checkboxes that we need the returns in different cells because it's a multi-selection form control. This is a single selection form control. So all our cell links are going to point to just this cell because we need only one cell to update when these options are changed. So I'm just going to go on and connect the rest of the option buttons to this same cell. Funny enough, it's already pointing to the cell, but I'm just still going to step into them and ensure that the connection is going to that cell. So it's set up. So what will happen is whenever I click another option button, the first option button gets deselected and the next one gets selected and the number changes to 2. And then when I move to the next one, it gets deselected and the option changes. It can only select one option at the same time. So one thing I forgot to mention is that the list that you're generating here, the order of the lists, this list of car model and car year, must match the order of the rows and the columns on your data table for this to work well. Because they match the order of the rows and columns on the table, this number 3, corresponds to the third row on this table, and this number 2 for car year corresponds to the second column. So what we're now going to do is to create a reference formula that says give me the value on the third row and the second column of this data table. And that value, the value on the third row and the second column, will give us the value in Naira for a car, for the Toyota Tacoma 2014 model, which is what we want to see here by virtue of selecting Toyota Tacoma and 2014. So I'm going to create the index formula here. And that index formula is going to be equal to index, open brackets. It's asking for the array. We're focused on this usage of the first usage of the index formula, which is index array row number column number. So it's asking for the array. The array is the data table. And when you're selecting the data table, Again, my data table is this short, but if you include more model numbers, more model names, and more years, you can extend your data table to be as long as possible. And my data table is here. And when you're selecting your data table, remember not to include the row headers and the column headers. If not, it's going to distort your results. You just want to include, refer to just the data itself, not the data headers. So I have selected the data, which is from C6 to E8. And then I'm going to type comma. And now it's asking for the row number. And the row number we want it to bring is the row of Toyota Tacoma, which this list box has helped us to tell, this list box output has generated for us here in this cell. And so we can refer to this cell here. And then we're clicking, and then we're going to type comma. And now it's asking us for the column number. And the column number we want to see for the car year 2014. And this cell link has returned that car year number for us in this cell. So we're going to refer to this cell here. And then we're going to close the bracket and click enter. And it brings out 9432900. So let's check the data tables at the back. It's the price for a 2014 Toyota Tacoma 9432900. So Toyota Tacoma 2014 9432900. The formula works. And then we can move it around. Let's now select a Toyota 4Runner for 2016. And the value is 1,598,700. Is that correct? 4Runner 2016, 1,598,700. So I've tested the formula and the formula works. And again, just running through how we got this formula to work. The formula works because of these bridges, these cell links, which are bridges between the form controls and the data table. So the cell link returns the relative position of the item selected into a separate cell. And that separate cell can now be referenced in a formula, has the work of returning the value given a table's rows and column numbers. And now we're going to set up the spin button. To program it, just like we programmed the others, you right click it and then click format control. On that format control, in the control section, you see that the setup is a bit different from the others. And I'll explain why. The spin button works by creating a counter in a cell, and that counter increases as you click the up button or the down button. So let me create the cell link, which will be this cell here. This is where we will be seeing the numbers. We set our minimum value, which is 0. Minimum value will be 0, maximum value will be 100. And the cell link is here. And then we click OK. And then we can go in. And when we go in, because we have selected it that way, we have programmed it that way. When you go in and you're clicking it, and you start to click it, you notice that the value increments. If you click the down button, the value goes down. And this is how you set up your spin button. However, recall that the value here needs to be a percentage, and your form controls cannot be set up to generate percentages. They just don't have the capacity to be set up that way. So because of that, we actually have to link this cell link to a separate cell, and that separate cell, we will divide it by 100 to generate the value that we will see here in the output. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now this spin button is connected to this separate cell, and then this cell, you think about it as our cell link, color it red like the other cell links, and this cell responds to this form button, the form control, just like the others do. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a formula in here dividing this cell link by 100, so that it's the percentage value that shows up in this visual. So I've done that, and then I'm going to convert the value to percentage, and just going to increase the font so it takes up more space. And now this looks like the setup on the original pane. Again, we can always hide this. What I'm doing just because of this tutorial is coloring them white, but that's not good practice. You need to move all of them to the back end. But because this is the demonstration, I'm just coloring white so that it's out of the way. So now it's all set up. So we set up panel 1 here, set up panel 2 here. So now the second panel of the dashboard is completed. We have set up panel 1, which generates the value of the car based on the model and car year selected. I've set up panel 2 here, which gives the user the options to select additional costs and to check how much upfront loan or payment is there. And now we're going to set up the third panel, which pulls all the information from the first and the second panel together to generate the final spend. To set up this third panel, we're now going to have to go to the back end, and we are going to use the back end to compute the impact of whatever has been selected in the checkbox and in the spin button. We have created an additional calculation column to add up whatever has been selected as true. This computation column has formulas that are responding to what has been selected here. And the formula runs as this multiplies by this. So the way Excel works is if you multiply a cell containing a Boolean value with a cell containing a numerical value, you will get one of two outcomes. If the Boolean value is true, if you multiply true with a numerical value, you will get the exact same numerical value, nothing added, nothing removed. If the Boolean value is false, when you multiply false by the numerical value, you will get 0. So this is our way of aggregating what values have been selected as true. If the checkbox is true, the value will show up and it will get added up to the final, this total annual cost. If the checkbox is false, it just will not show up and it will not be added up to this final cost. So this is our total cost based on our selections of the additional cost for the year. And what we are now going to do is to generate our car expense for the year. The final car expense for 2021 is going to be the value of the car multiplied by the upfront on low payments plus the total additional cost that may apply. And remember that we have computed the total additional cost here. It's going to be equals to this value here multiplied by this percentage showing up, and then we're just going to close that in a bracket so that that computes separately, plus the value at the back end, which is the sum total of all the selected additional costs. And we press enter, and of course we can increase this font so that this value takes up a lot of space, of course, as far as it can go before it turns to multiple hash signs. That's it. The model is complete, and then the last stage, which is to test that it's working perfectly, is to test different scenario options and be sure that the items that are supposed to interact, the items that are supposed to update with a checkbox with a change are updating. We've already done that test here where we tested through all those values, and then we're just doing it for this one. And then what I traditionally do, usually when I'm building a simple model that involves multiplication with a percentage, is that I'm not very good at math, so I always move the percentage over to 10, which I know how to compute 10% of, and then I've deselected all of them here so that what is actually computing here is just this multiplied by this, and I make sure that the value showing here is exactly 10% of this value, and I see that it matches, and I am confident that this works. Of course, to increase my confidence level, I'm going to just add on a cost basis that I can see the easy computation, 20% annually. If I click this checkbox, this value should update to 103,4,846 plus 20,000, which should be 105,4,846. So if I click this, I should see 105,4,846. So I'm going to do that, and yeah, that works. And I think that gives me the confidence that this model is working the way it's supposed to work. So that's the whole tutorial. Like, essentially, it's 4 steps. The first step is build out the visual layer, and the visual layer was essentially this header area, the form controls, the descriptions on the form controls. The second stage was to build at the back end, which is this layer, which I didn't rebuild, if you recall, because I just used the layer in the very first model I built out. The third stage was to link the front end and back end together, and I did that using the cell links on the form controls and using the formulas to bring them together, particularly the index formula. And the fourth stage is to test it all out to see that it works. Of course, I did the different, I worked on if you think about it, there are 3 panels on this dashboard, and I worked on the 3 panels individually as the pace allowed for it. Of course, this is a simplistic model. It doesn't include car shipping costs, and it doesn't include interest payments, which will definitely form a significant part of car expenses. But again, this is expected to just be a demonstration on the kind of functionality you can get from form controls in MS Excel. So that's it. I would leave a link to a copy of the original model for you to download, and like this video, comment on anything you think I might have missed out, or some other feature you want to see featured in a future 101 Excel hack video.